Welcome, friend, to Life and Liberty Radio. I'm David Householder, here to encourage your pursuit of happiness. You and I are partners, exploring our shared spiritual journeys. Together, we're dreaming and working for a free society. Tell others today about our adventure in faith and freedom. So breathe in, open your mind, lift up your spirit. Let's get started. If you have lived long enough, you have felt the devastation of the loss of a primary relationship. Now, by a primary relationship, I mean immediate family, best friend. Perhaps that person moved far, far away, perhaps to a different continent, especially if you were younger and you had no control and no way of traveling, and someone moved out of your life to the other side of the country. Or perhaps there was conflict that broke your relationship. Perhaps it led to a divorce if you were married. Perhaps you've got family members that are immediate family members, parents, children, brothers, sisters with whom you are not speaking. You're not on speaking terms with that person. And the worst of all, of course, is death. When we lose a primary relationship through death, that's the Super Bowl of grief. And as we work through that grief, it can freeze us up and debilitate us. It's like a wrecking ball that goes through the buildings of our life. And we stand there looking at this wreckage, this ruin, and ask ourselves, how can I ever be the person I was before this happened, before I lost this fundamental relationship in my life? And we don't just grieve for the loss of the person, we grieve for the loss of the person that we were before that person passed away or walked out of our lives, because we enjoyed being a son, a daughter, a husband, a wife, a friend, a parent to a child that we've lost. And we liked that role, and we have to shift who we are. When we lose a primary relationship, it changes the definition of who we are. We take on a different role in the family system, in the system of friendships, in the relational system that is there. Well, today we're going to talk about Ruth. And Ruth was a historical character from over 3,000 years ago. And we read about her in the Hebrew Bible. There's a book named after her called Ruth. It's a very short book. And Ruth was a Moabite woman. She was not one of the Israelites. She was a foreigner among Israelites, and she was from the nation of Moab. And Moab is in present-day Jordan, and that's neither here nor there. The truth is she was a foreigner among the people of the Bible. And after 10 years of marriage to an Israelite, she was widowed. Her husband passed away. And the long and the short of it is the only family she ended up having left was a woman named Naomi, who was the mother of her ex-husband, her husband who had died. And she had a choice here. What do I do? The devastation of losing a primary relationship was compounded by losing her nation, for she had to choose between family, going back with Naomi to Naomi's country, which was Israel, or staying in Moab with no family. What a choice. And so she ended up choosing to go with Naomi with those famous words, your country will be my country, your God will be your country, where you go, I will go. And that sense of loyalty, the relationship trumped her citizenship at that point because it's all she had. And I can just imagine the devastation in her life and the redefinition of who she was and what she was going to be. She was used to being someone's wife, and she was probably enjoying that, and used to living in the country of Moab, where she was from. And all of a sudden, she had to follow her mother-in-law, who was also a widow, back to the country where her mother-in-law was from, where then Ruth was going to be a foreigner. And she's thinking, wow, this is not good. This is not how I wanted it to go. And that's so often how we feel in life. This is not the script I was reading. How did I end up on this track? How did this happen to me? How am I going to make my way through this? Well, I heard this this amazing podcast this morning by a life coach up in Lake Tahoe. Her name is Alexis Robin. And Alexis Robin said something which is just a phrase which I'm going to remember for a long time. And I'd like you to listen to it, and if you can, to write it down. Sometimes life goes wrong in our favor. Sometimes life goes wrong in our favor. I just love that phrase. And Ruth decided that in the wreckage of this life, she was going to make something good out of it. You see, when the wrecking ball comes through our life, it hurts and it's painful, and who we were disappears. When you lose a primary relationship, you lose a part of who you are. And all of a sudden, where there used to be buildings, there is wreckage. But the truth is, if you clear away the wreckage, there's room for the Creator, room for the Lord, for God, to build something new, because God loves to create. And it's an opportunity to have more real estate to work with, because our lives get full. After living for decades, we've got this filled and that filled, our time fills up, and we don't have any more space on our dance card. And if you were a Tinker Toy, there's no more holes left for people to connect with. And our lives get very, very full, and we get behind. And the one bright side of losing a primary relationship is it creates new acreage on which to build. It creates space to do something new. And that's exactly what Ruth did. She decided that she was going to start at the bottom and work her way up, and be a good person, and live out of the virtues that she had inside of her, of hard work and believing and hoping. And she ended up marrying a man named Boaz, who was a prominent man in the area. And she and Boaz had children, and that ended up being in the very direct lineage which led down the centuries to Jesus, a Moabite woman, a foreigner. But she decided that she would take the fact that there was wreckage, clean it out, and let God make something new out of it. And she wasn't a person who even understood the God of the Israelites, the God that we read about in the Bible. She was from a foreign country. But she thought, hey, where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. And I will make this work. And I will put relationships first. And I will make the very best of this situation. And the fact is, her life was destroyed, and that gave God room to put together all kinds of new things. Have you read The Blackberry Bush? At the moment the Berlin Wall falls, a boy and a girl are born on opposite sides of the world. Did they share a destiny? Do we all share the same destiny? Come on a treasure hunt through the landscape of your soul. BlackberryNovel.com. So this reminds me of the 9/11 catastrophe. My brother Mike and I, soon after the World Trade Center explosions and the whole terrorist attack, we went to New York City. We stayed in the YMCA, and we got up early in the morning and took the subway into the site of the disaster. And this was shortly after it happened. And because I'm an ordained clergyman, I had a card, and they let us in to the site. And we walked out onto the site, and the lights were just burning so bright because they didn't want any darkness or shadows at all. And there was still smoke coming up through the ash as we walked across the ash, and the stench was amazing. And it was this open sore in the middle of New York City. It was just emotionally overwhelming. And you ask yourself, how in the world is anything good going to come from this? How could it possibly ever be good again? Because we're used to seeing a picture of New York City with the Twin Towers there, and it was part of the sort of iconography of the city, and all of those lives that were lost that will never be restored, and the blow to our confidence as a nation. It was a gash in our national soul, and it all of us remember where we were when that happened. Well, the truth is, they're building a magnificent tower there called the Freedom Tower. It's 1,776 feet tall in memory of 1776 when this country was built. And there's these beautiful waterfalls in that spot, and it's become a national shrine, and it's become really a holy place, a place of prayer, a place of contemplation, a place that brings America together, a place of great unity. And I'm not saying that it was a good thing that tragedy happened, but sometimes life goes wrong in our favor. We can make something good out of it. The truth is that place is now better than it was. It was formerly just kind of a square steel and box kind of businessy commercial area. Now it's a holy place for the country. And it really has upgraded in its value. It's a place everyone in the world knows about. And it's a place that stands for all that freedom is about. And so really, what we want to do when something like that happens in our lives, and those 9/11 attacks will come. They will come in our lives. We will get hit. The Bible says in John 16:33, in the New Testament, the Christian Bible, it says, "In this world you will have trouble, but have courage, for I have overcome the world." Now, it's taken a long time to rebuild that area. This was 2001 that the attacks happened, and now it's 2013, and it's still not finished. And there were so many plans and so much confusion afterwards and so much competition and angry debate over what should happen with this space. And when someone dies and it leaves that vacant lot in our lives, it takes years sometimes to work it through. It doesn't get rebuilt the next day. We have to kind of think, okay, who am I going to be now? And how can I make this better? And Romans 8:28 from the Apostle Paul, when he writes to the Romans, he says, all things work for good for those that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. If we can trust the Creator and listen to his calling of our purpose, he can and will build things back better than they were. And the truth is, once it's happened, we'd never want to go back to who we were before. Sure, it was painful, and we'd love to remove that painful event from our lives. But in that growth over the years of rebuilding, we become different people. We become stronger people, and we would never want to go back to the people we were before it happened. It's a time to grow your soul. It's a time to put on your construction helmet. Devastation, the loss of a primary relationship. We've learned this from the story of Ruth. And we've seen that in our own experience, is an opportunity to build. My friend, it's time to put on your construction helmet. It's time to build. Well, that's all for today on Life and Liberty Radio. Thanks so much for sharing this part of your spiritual journey with me. Now, the views on this program are not necessarily those of my advertisers, sponsors, places I work or do business with. They're purely my own, but I'm sharing them with you, so share your ideas with me. Write me on Twitter at Liberty House, LIBERTYHOUS, no E. Until next time, let's continue dreaming and working for a free and spiritually grounded society.